Hello and welcome to 3-Minute Miniatures, where we are always cooking up something new for you to use in your next D&D adventure. This week I decided to make the 3 main fungi types that are found in D&D. These are of course the gas spore, the violet fungus and the Shrieker. We're going to start with the Shrieker because I personally think it's probably the easiest one. That's what I found. It was probably the easiest one to make. Least amount of parts and least amount of colours with painting. So you're going to start with a stalk, something like this. It doesn't have to be too long. Make sure it's sort of circular like an organic plant would be. But yeah, this part is not too difficult. It's just a long stalk. Moving on now to the top of the mushroom. What you're going to want is some sort of ball like this. I just used a polystyrene ball, which I've used for other sort of mushrooms in the past. They do fragment a bit, but you're only going to really need half of it, as you can see. What you want to do is then get something that can just gorge out sort of circular holes and just go in random spots. So I'll show you a couple here. So like this, I just tear it out like this. Be careful that you don't rip loads out, because otherwise it won't look very much like a Shrieker. But I just found this, and I think I did about, well, there you go, you see, it did about 8 holes, maybe 9, maybe 10, I'm not quite sure how many I've got there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I've got 10. So once you've got this, turn to the bottom, and you're just going to slice, like you're cutting a pizza all the way around, you know, like what the underneath of a mushroom looks like this. So then we glue this onto the top, and you basically have the mushroom. For some reason I forgot to show the painting of the stalk, but it's literally just burnt umber, no other things like that. Over the top you're wanting to go a lilac sort of colour, which dries a little bit darker, which is quite nice, but it gives us this thing. Then the next colour you want to go is a dark purple, just all inside the sort of the holes of the Shrieker. And also I use this flecky brush because just to go around the outside and sort of look like it's, you know, spreading to the outside. You see it's sort of a bit freckly, a bit all over the place. That's really the look I wanted. And while that's drying, we'll quickly make the bases. So very simple base, 3 different sizes. So you want glue, you want to put that, you want to paint it burnt umber, and then just dry brush it with grey. And here is the first one. Yes, I made a slightly smaller one because I put it on the base and I thought, it looks like it needs something else, so I made a second one. And I quite like that. But yeah, extremely simple, extremely fast as well. That was very fast. But yeah, it just looks good. It looks like a Shrieker. And yeah, that's how you're making it. Now let's move on to the next one, which is the violet fungus. So for this, you're going to need to start with 2 different pieces. They are going to be the stalk and the sort of the top part before we add sort of the tendrils. So the stalk has been made, and now let's sort of make the top part. Just make it into sort of a teardrop shape. Sort of worked for me. That's what I did, and it looked good. But it takes a bit of time. But eventually you'll have something like this: the stalk, larger at the bottom, smaller at the top, and the sort of the teardrop shaped top bit. Next, what you want to do is to make the sort of the holes that are in it. Get a knife and just sort of go diagonally 2 different ways. Well, 2 different ways you can go with a knife, and just make holes, and then using a pencil go along those holes to just highlight them. This will help when you're dry brushing. You'll drag from the top and it will miss these holes, which will, like that, outline them as sort of different areas. Then you'll want to glue the 2 different pieces together, like so. And there we go. Alright, now, don't fall over on me. Now we're going to move on to the tendrils part, and these are going to be made using wire, just like this. So we'll get a decent amount because we'll really stab it into this thing. And just be careful, one of them I stabbed in, a little piece almost came off, but luckily I glued it on. So we're just going to add that might be a little bit too much, but a generous amount of hot glue in the end so it really stays there, it doesn't fall off. And really just stab it into this thing like that. Then put some hot glue all the way up the long thing, and then sort of smooth it out with your finger, so that it sort of does that. And you can turn it. I would turn it while it's drying, because once it dries it's a lot harder to sort of move about. But yeah, leave the end open because we want the tentacles to get thinner, and that's quite hard to do with hot glue. But you know, arrange them in any way you like. I put 2 forwards, 2 up, which I think looks alright. But there are the 4 tentacles like that, and that is literally all we need to do for the crafting part. So now let's get into painting. So a light grey is going to go on the base, just all over the base. I hit a little bit of the top, that's alright. And then once that's dry, get a white dry brush just over the top and I go down here by accident, but where you want to go is sideways, more like what I'm doing now, to just really create the colour that it is in the concept art. And then you're going to go with a sort of a dark magenta, however you pronounce it, and this is to go all over it, not the tentacles. So don't go over the door. You can, because you'll paint over them, but it's not for the tentacles, it's just for the top part of the plant. So this one has quite a bit of water in it because it has to seep into all these sort of gaps there. But yeah, it should look like this. It dries quite dry. Now you're going to want a sort of just a normal magenta, or a lighter one if the one before was a little bit lighter. But just go over the top, something like this. Looks alright. And then with a sort of a very light pink, go over the tentacles. And this is what you're left with. It's quite a nice sort of thing, but the violet fungus really goes on it. Oh, that might have been violet actually. That was violet. So now onto the gas bore. You're going to want a piece like this, which is just about the length of your finger all the way to your second knuckle, but it's just a square. We're going to cut it into a circle first, and then we're going to turn that circle into a sort of a how would you describe? Sort of a torus without the middle cut out of it. So it's sort of like a, not quite a sphere, because it's like an oval sphere is sort of what I would describe it as. But yeah, so it's sort of smooth around the edges, but then flat on the front. Now we're going to craft, we're going to put holes into it all the way around. You can do this with a knife, but I just found doing it with a pencil like this and then going around like this is a little bit easier. So you'll want an eye hole. You'll sort of one ring in the very middle, one ring like where the flat and the thing sort of ends, and then you'll want lines going out between them, and then lines going to the back, and lines the same on the back. I'll show you what I do in a minute, but if I show you the whole process, we would be here for a long time. So something like that. So you see it's holes and everything like that, and then on the back it's the same. Make sure they're not the same, because this is an organic creature, and you could make it the same obviously, but I just made it slightly different because I thought, well, it's not going to be the exact same on both sides, so I made one side more symmetrical and one side a bit longer. So now what we're going to do is make the sort of the little mushrooms at the top. So you're going to take more wire and stab it in. I did 8 separate sort of little mushroom things, and after that I put tin foil on the top to act as sort of the tops of the mushrooms. I then put it on its base because I thought it would be easier to paint. No, it's not. It is not easier to paint at all, so I took it off, but that's what it will look like eventually once it's painted. It's floating off the ground, so I put 2 smaller mushrooms on the base just so it wouldn't look so bland. I think they add something. So the first colour we're going to want everywhere except for the top mushrooms is sort of a dark greeny lime. It's more green than lime, but I did add a little bit of lime to give it a slightly lighter colour. I would personally go a little bit lighter than this because I tried to dry brush over the top and it still is quite dark. And if you look at the concept art, it's a bit lighter. That could just be because it was in the light. Here I am with the dry brushing green all over it again, not the fungus, but like this. And then we go with a white in the middle for the central eye. Just sort of get all the area at the top like that. Then I go with what is this? Oh yes, a red along all the sides. Make sure you get a little bit on top of the, not just in the groove, like a little bit on top of the other areas, like so it sort of looks like it's oozing out. What I think. Then I go with an orange on the middle to make the sort of the iris. The iris? I don't know what parts of an eye. The middle part of the eye, and then I use just a black sort of felt tip pen once it's dried to, no, this is the iris, to create the iris, right? Oh dear, I don't know my parts of the eye. Something like that, and the same on the other side. And then what we're going to want to do is to get a grey. This is just, again, just a normal grey, not a light grey. Go over all of those, and then with a white dry brush, just get the tops of the thing to make them sort of fermenting, and it should look something like this, reattached to the base. Yeah, you see it's a bit dark. I tried to make it lighter a couple of times. I did a wash, but it just, the green was too dark for it to lighten up. I didn't want to go through it very slowly over the top of it. But hey, you recognise what it is. It's a gas spore. No one's going to say, what is that? Yes, but I can now understand why people think it's almost a beholder. So, here are the 3 different types. The Shrieker, of course, that we made at the very start. Very purpley and stuff. As is the violet fungus, but it's the more violet colour. Very nice. I think it was probably the one I liked the most, the violet fungus, out of all of them. It just sort of looked quite nice. And then, of course, the gas spore, which is actually on a large base compared to the other ones being on medium bases. So that is the 3 fungus types of D&D. Thank you very much for watching my video. Alright, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, and if you really thought it was something special, make sure to subscribe. Anyway, I shall wish you all a happy new year, and I shall say goodbye, and see you next week.